Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we left off looking at some, I gotta remember what they were, sorry. Some Sterlings and Halifaxes. The Halifax Heavy Bomber and the Sterlings. We are now on to the Commandos pay a visit to Spitsbergen, September 1941. Allied landing in the Arctic Circle. On September 8th, a landing at Spitsbergen was made by a mixed force of British, Canadian, and Norwegian troops under Canadian command. The object of the landing was to prevent the Nano-Germans from using the island's coal supplies, since it had been known that they had planned to seize all of the coal. The operation was carried out unopposed. All the mines were completely destroyed, and all the inhabitants, some 700 miners and their families, were brought back to Britain, where men of military age enlisted with the Royal Norwegian Forces. Spitsbergen, which lies 240 miles north of Norway, within the Arctic Circle, had been completely cut off from its parent state ever since the German occupation of Norway in April 1940. And, although not actually occupied by the enemy, German mining experts were known to have paid several visits to the island in order to examine its potentialities. The pictures show, top left, plant and machinery at mining power station put out of action by British sappers. Bottom left, miners and their families with their luggage and personal belongings about to embark in the landing barges. Right, fuel dumps blazing as the Allied force prepared to re-embark. So there we see that coal power station completely obliterated, basically. Put out of commission. Obviously, they don't want the Nano-Germans getting the coal, so they're going to destroy all of it. Here we see those people getting loaded onto the barges with their personal belongings on their way to Britain. And then there it shows the ruins of the coal plant up in smoke as they're getting ready to leave. I do think some of this kind of feels a little forcing these people to do this. I don't know, something about this just feels a little wrong, you know? I can't quite put my finger on it, but feels like they're forcing these people to go their way. Which, maybe these people wanted to, but it's also possible maybe they really didn't. This was their home. American-made bomber captures a U-boat. September 8th, 1941. Submarine surrenders to a bomber. On September 8th, the British Admiralty announced that a German U-boat had been attacked in the Atlantic by a Hudson reconnaissance bomber and forced to surrender. After radioing for naval and air relief, the Hudson guarded her prey for 3.5 hours until a Catalina flying boat arrived to take over. After 7 more hours, naval vessels arrived and took the submarine into port. The pictures show a British officer in a Carly float approaching the submarine. It's kind of crazy to think that a bomber had this submarine basically like, yeah, they're screwed. We got them. And then not only that, but then guards it for 3 hours. That's crazy. But yeah, I guess that's what happens when you meet superior American machinery. The Germans launched a drive for Kiev, whichever you prefer. September 10th to 14th, 1941. Tanks in the Ukraine. While the battle for Leningrad continued unabated, the Russian armies further south counterattacked fiercely in the Smolensk and Gomel areas, thereby seriously threatening the German flanks. In order to relieve this pressure, the enemy opened a new attack on Kiev, which resulted in the fall of Chernigov to the north of the city on the 12th and Kremchug on the Dnieper on the 14th. The German tanks seen above are advancing through heavy Russian artillery fire towards objectives in the Ukraine. There we see those German tanks. They're on the drive. And yeah, the Germans obviously use tanks pretty good here. I mean, the land is good for it, things like that. They're going to use these effectively, and most of the Ukraine is going to fall into German hands. That's why nowadays, if you've seen pictures from the war in the Ukraine right now with the Russians and the Ukrainians, there are some like World War II era German machine guns on the Ukrainian side, or maybe even the Russian side. And that's just because a lot of this stuff just got left behind, and people were like, oh, I'm just going to take it as a trophy. And then Grandpa's trophy is now what you're using to defend yourself, so. I don't think there's any Stimmgewehrs, but there's, I think, some MP40s that I've seen. Tank battle in progress on the Ukrainian plains. September 1941. German tanks go forward. During the fighting in the Ukraine, where the vast plains offered ideal country for tank warfare, the Germans threw masses of armored vehicles into battle. Against these, the Russians employed dive bombers and artillery as well as their own armored forces. The picture of a tank battle in progress shows German tanks advancing through an artillery barrage from the Russian batteries. Here we see all those tanks, and yeah, you can see the bursting of the bombs. Although it almost seems like this is in the air that these are going off, which if they are, it's not very effective. Because I think the idea would be to rain shrapnel on them with an air burster. But they're in armored vehicles. It is peculiar. The Nona Germans drive on in Russia. September 1941. September 1941. German infantry are here seen passing at the double through a blazing Russian village which has been scorched by its inhabitants. Scenes such as this were common on all parts of the Russian front during the German advance. And yeah, here we see the Germans going through the blazed wreck. And yeah, this did happen quite often. It was just a way to ensure that this was not being used by the Germans as they advanced. The fall of Kiev. September 19th, 1941. German enter Ukrainian capital. After crossing the Dnieper at Kremchug, the forces of von Rusten switched northwards and linked up with those of von Bock, advancing southwards from Chernigov. The maneuver completely encircled the capital together with large bodies of Russian troops. As a result, the evacuation of Kiev was carried out on September 19th, leaving the Russian armies to fight their way out of the German ring. Above, 2 German soldiers are seen looking out across the captured city from the citadel. So there we see those German soldiers looking out. And yeah, it doesn't look like there's too much damage to the city, thankfully, but yeah, most of the Ukraine is, I think all of it actually is eventually captured. And the people suffer horribly for it. No Germans find Kiev a blazing inferno. September 19th, 1941. Germans enter burning Kiev. Before the Russians evacuated the Ukrainian capital, they carried out a systematic and thorough demolition of all plants and buildings likely to be used of the enemy. A picture of the city as the Russians left it is shown above. And yeah, you can see the entire city is just burning, or this building at least is burning, which once again, scorched earth. They don't want the enemy using any of their stuff, so burn it, burn it, burn it. Then they can't use it. It was an effective tactic, if not destructive to your own country. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I can improve on. I always appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.